set. You have to excuse me, I've got a really terrible cold since I left Brooklyn. I don't know what happened, but change of climate or something. So if I sneeze, cough. Plus, I'm not Maggie and I'm not Charles. So I have to apologize, I'm not a poet. I feel like I'm sandwiched between two of the greatest, and this is like really not fair. So just being a humble artist, I will present my work. As I was very graciously introduced, I made 16 artist books, and that's what I'm going to start showing. The first one, under the name Susan B. Laufer, was Photogram, which was published by Asylums Press, which is run by my current husband, Charles, and me. It featured abstract black and white photographs that I made in the darkroom in the 1970s, and there was no text. Next. So this is a page from the book. And next, another page from the book. And just about a year ago in Brooklyn, I showed the original photographs for the first time since I made the book. So it was a very abstract book, my first book. And then later on, I started to work with poets. And Charles and I have done 6 books together. Next. This one's called The Occurrence of Tune. It's from 1981, published by Segway. And it was printed offset and involved a long poem of Charles with altered photographs by me. And this is an old soda fountain upstate. Next. That's my self-portrait from a long time ago, before I got the white hair. Created with Painted Developer. Next. This is the poet Ray De Palma sunning himself in our yard. And I painted the developer on, and it goes against the line, ink again spilling on my fingers. So the images are all somewhat related to the poem, which was lengthy and went in a long horizontal fashion. Next. So our second book was this little teeny tiny book, which is called The Nude Formalism, our second offset book, which was published by Sun and Moon in 1989. And here I was using an ornamental approach to setting the poems. So I wanted to get away from the idea of type as being just a transparent and very calm thing. And also Charles had come up with a new movement called the Nude Formalism, which is sort of a joke. Okay, next. And this is his poem called Gosh. And here I used a decorative frame with a small linear angel and floral motifs and ornamental script for the type. And I wanted to de-emphasize the formal aspects of the poem and play with my own reframings of the poem, and because it was Charles's work, he let me do that. Next. This is one of my favorites, No Way. My mind is like a steel trap. Once something gets in, it never gets out. Or as they say in Saskatoon, there's nothing like a peach, unless it be a pear, and there's no pear like the present. So I had this astronomer as the idea of looking out from the page. And I'm trying to emphasize the absurdist and humorous aspect of these particular writings, and so they're sort of nursery rhyme-like absurdity, and I felt very free to do what I wanted with these particular poems. Next. So this book was published, Little Orphan Anagram. I don't know why there's an arrow in the middle of it, but that's... Oh yeah. I was like, no, there's no arrow in the image. So this was published by Granary Books, which is a really wonderful limited edition offset. They do a lot of different kinds of publishing. And so I did this book for them. I think I've done 6 books for them. Next. So this is the Little Orphan Anagram character. And it has the little orphan anagram sitting in a tree, bruised by pride, abandoned by a decree. and then it has a funny little rhyme about tea in China. And here I picked out small, short poems to set in the order that I determine. So some pages just have one line from a poem, and other pages have the full texts. And I used 19th century engravings and other collaged and hand-drawn imagery to frame the poems. Next. This one I love. This one is the professor on the right, be quiet, dummy head. And then the woman, the parts are greater than the sum of the whole. And it's a picture from a drawing manual from the 40s where the woman's wearing high heels, which is absurd. So I had to do that. And all the color was hand-painted in these books. So I must have painted about 1,000 pages. I tried not to count because it got to be so many. Next. And then this is another poem of Charles's, which is embedded into a Gothic kind of setting that I made for it, with a bat and a woman being pushed over the edge, which is probably the way I felt when I got to this page. So I made 40 copies of this book, and there are like 40 pages. Anyway, it was a lot. So next. And then this is the end. So each page of the book presents my own interpretation of the poems, and I'm not interested in a strict illustrational approach, but rather oblique associative relation. So I see the illustrations as an enhancement of the text, not a superseding of the text, but a way to provide a further key to reading the poems for myself. And I feel like the drawings form a comment on the text, but I'm also playing with a variety of typefaces and reversing and cutting things out. So I really feel like, since I've done many, many books with poets, I like to change my approach depending on which poet I'm working with. Next. This one was with Charles. We rented a house. We rented a log cabin that strangely had the name Logarithm. And there he is in front of the cabin. So this was published in 1998 by Granary. It's offset, black and white. And it's a single long poem setting. Next. And in this one I embedded the poem, "We're all surrealists now," said the barker for the language contortionist, live act on the net. I embedded the poem in this little drawing. Next. This is Charles' list of all the Bobs, the shops that had Bob in the title. And that was a real challenge to set. Like, what was I going to do with this list of Bobs? So I just made it look geometric and interesting. And I actually really love this poem about Bob. Next. On this one, the illustration is inspired by the opening lines of the poem. The puppy is the father to the dog, or possibly father-in-law or cousin, or in any case related. And the mouse chases the cat, but only in the poem. So that's why there's the dog and the cat and the mouse chasing each other around the perimeter. Next. And then this one, the gift is always less than it seems. And the last line, let language lead, was the one that kind of inspired me to have the arrows going off the page. So I think you can see that there's not a very direct illustrational relation between what I'm doing and other artists might do it a totally different way, but nobody's attempted it. So I got it to myself. Next. So bed hangings. I've actually brought some of these for people to see. They're pretty much out of print, but bed hangings with Susan Howe was the next project I did in 2001. Her work has a lot of historical references, so I went to the library to find canopied beds and other specific materials to use for this book. Next. And I tried to match the spareness and abstraction of many of the poems, as well as their surprising mystical qualities. And the book was published in black and white, and each page includes one of her poems from the series. So I was very happy to get this work from her, and we worked on it together. I went up to Connecticut to work on it with her, and she would constantly be writing new poems, so I kind of had to keep working. And in the end, she wrote many more poems than were in the book, so she ended up publishing another book called Bed Hangings 2. But mine is Bed Hangings 1, so to speak. So next. And what I used was a lot of silhouettes from the period, so it was mostly sort of dealing with the colonial American period. And so I was very much trying to match the historical references, but not in a super strict manner. Next. This is another one, and it was a lot about weaving, actually, and swatches of material, so those are the weavers. And then there was a lot about bed hangings. And so when I was working on the text, I was like, she gave me a book which explained a lot of her references, which was very helpful because I had no idea what. When she sent me the manuscript, I was so clueless. I had never dealt with any of this stuff before, and it was a challenge for sure. And next. Then this little book, A Girl's Life, color offset book, 2002, which I illustrated, and includes writing by Johanna Drucker and typography and design done by both of us. And this one actually has more present day imagery. Next. We drew on our own experiences of going through childhood and adolescence, and also on our friendship. So it was a very personal book in a way, and then it was also a lot about my love for paper dolls, film noir, and Johanna's love for noirish fiction. So we cut up her text, and she ran the text around my pictures. So the typography is hers. Next. And this one is She Got the Message. There was a lot of anger in the book. Anger and angst. That was big. Next. And then here she reached for a weapon concealed between her real circumstances and imagined fears. She crouched beneath her nightmares and waited. And that's sort of my pinup person, my noir pinup. Next. And then this is another page. So we really enjoyed playing with the placement of the text, and you know, really it was very ad hoc kind of positioning of the text in terms of the imagery. So I made the collages first, and then Johanna went back in the computer and put the text in the way she wanted it, and she chose which text would go on what page. So it was quite a strong collaboration. Next. And then this one is the last page, which is Live between paradise and compromise. A girl's life is never performed completely unawares. It turns around. So I was also using stickers and a lot of throwing a lot of paint around for this one. My next book for Granary was a limited edition next, which I did with Jerome Rothenberg, called, each book has a totally different logic from the other ones, so all of a sudden I was in Blake after being in Noir Girlland, and his was all about images of Madonnas and children in like Renaissance texts, and the epigraph is from William Blake. So I really started out with that and made a lot of hand-colored pictures that were then reproduced digitally. So this is the opening page. Next. And these are some spreads from the book, and you can see that each poem each illustration or accompanying picture refers to what's in the poem. For instance, a kitty and a flying horse and a serpent, sperm. I can't really remember what's in it. I can't even read it, but whatever. Believe me, I tried to match it up. And it was really a challenge because it was coming off of doing A Girl's Life and doing the book with Susan Howe, and all of a sudden I was in a totally different space. But it was great. So next, and then he had the Infant of Prague, and he had his Madonnas and his St. Catharines. And I have to say it was a very interesting collaboration between two Jews. Very Catholic, very Catholic. So, and we both love Catholic imagery. Next, here's the Infants of Prague. And they're all raining down. And then we had Italy with a cut-up rainbow. He could tell you something different about the book, I'm sure. Next. And then the latter part of the book has to do with the destruction of Kurt Schwitter's Merzbow, which was destroyed in World War II. And I used cut-up colored papers for that section, and it also refers to Schwitter's use of collage. And Schwitter's is really important to Jerry, and he's really important to me too. So this section was one long poem just about Schwitter's, and so that was a particular interest of mine. Next, this is more devils, etc. Madonnas. And Jerry actually gave me some of these imagery because he had been to places where he had written the poem, and some of the stained glass imagery is from him. Next. This is towards the end of the book where we talk about the destruction of 9/11 in New York, because as it happens he was there, so was I, and how it correlates with the destruction of Schwitter's Merzbow, of which there's only one picture, which is the one on the top right, and that's the Brooklyn Bridge on the bottom. Next. Oh, so this is getting me up to the present, and the book is in the back. It's Fabulous Feminae. It's a collaboration with Johanna Drucker. It's our latest book, and it was published by Litmus Press in 2015. It has 25 famous women, historical and imaginary. The collages are assembled from historical pictures, and then I added watercolor and gouache. So next, this is sort of the table of contents. These are all the women we had to have a lot of negotiation to come up with 25 women that we could agree on. So some of them are hers and some are mine, and some didn't make it. It was really hard. Next. This is my page for Hildegard von Bingen. Next. And Emily Bronte, whose house we just visited. I actually saw a reproduction of that painting, which I cut her head out of, so that was exciting. Next, this is Sonia Delaunay, the textile designer and painter. And I also put pictures in of them at their different parts of their lives. So that's Sonia Delaunay when she's starting out, and another picture of her later in her life. Next, Virginia Woolf. I found that passport picture, which I thought was very poignant. And there she is. And then this next, the singer Billie Holiday, who I noticed was playing in the bar when I came in. So another heroine of mine. And then Johanna, and that's Billie Holiday when she was a little girl, but she didn't, I added the wings. But she felt like she needed to fly. Next. So Johanna laid out she did the text, which she used a computer program to put together, and she made shaped text that matched up with my images. So this is, and without her to read it, I'm not attempting it. Boudica, and then next, Elizabeth I, all local queens, of course. And then next, Cleopatra. We didn't just do queens, actually, but this was a queenly page. And then I'm going to end with some next. So this is the thing you were trying to pronounce before, which we just call Meaning, which was a project that I've done for 25 years with the artist Mira Shore, with a magazine of artists' writings, theory, and criticism. And all of the issues we published from 1986 to 2011, and they're all up online. So next, and then we did a number of issues. We did a lot of stuff around feminism, collaborations, around resistance to the art world. And then we published an anthology that came out from Duke that's still in print, and also some online issues. Next, and then you can see it online. So the last thing I'm going to show is a few of my paintings. This is, which is basically my main practice. The artist books are sort of a sideline. This is a painting called Doomed to Win from 1984, which actually brings to mind poor Hillary Clinton being cornered all the time in the U.S. Next, this one's called Recalculating from 2009. It was based on a film noir still, and it's the cover of Charles's book by the same name. It's a fairly small painting. It's not this gigantic thing. Next. So I was very interested in the issue of women taking charge and dealing with violence, and I found film noir imagery very, very inviting to deal with. So I've been doing a lot with this. This one's called Drive By. And then next, Lady Be Good. Then I've gotten sort of into textures, heavy textures, and more romantic paintings with couples and complicated color patterns. Next, Dreamers. This was based on a film still from Raisin in the Sun, and I painted it after Ruby Dee died, and I was starting to look at pictures of her, and they were all in black and white, and I felt like they really needed to be in color. And I just took this film still that was pretty quiet from this black and white movie and added a lot to it. Next. This is The Kiss, based on a Buster Keaton movie from the 1920s. Next. Oh, yeah. This is what we were hoping for in the US. This is PAL, yeah. So, the last, one more, next, and this is Red Suns, which I named after a Paul Swan poem, which is a meditation on the landscape of Poland after the war. So that's everything I have to present.